Green Girl
second
mentions
season.
there, Boxleitner elevated things. I think it's true.
Okay, let me interrupt for a sec. Why? Why do you say Boxleitner elevated things? I mean, I agree that everything's been elevated. I agree with every of the points made, but why do you think he would?
Because Boxleitner, for all that Michael O'Hare may have talent and could have been, the best in the world, the fact that he was going through the mental difficulties that he was doing, and that made it difficult for people to work with him on set, that factors into it. But also, it's Bruce Boxleitner. I mean, this is, by now he's done Tron, he's done Scarecrow and Mrs. King, he's done Bring 'Em Back Alive. He's a recognizable name. Yeah. And you bring him in as the lead. It's like having Scott Bakula as your lead for Enterprise. They're like, "Whoa, they got Scott Bakula."
Well, and he just slid into place like almost effortlessly. And I mean, okay, he had a lot of scenes with Ivanova, right?
Yeah.
My opinion of Ivanova just leapt. In this episode,
did she go up a few pegs?
Yes, because she wasn't a caricature. She was like actually having human conversations, right? Yeah. And they were mostly with Boxleitner or Sheridan.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? I mean, do you agree?
No, I literally
you were kind of.
I was thinking about at this time,
as far as scripting and how everything was producing forward, as far as JMS, we're in a trap door. Technically, this part of the scripts and everything going forward is not shouldn't have happened, but because of the departure of Sinclair, they JMS had to change things around, and it was for the better. It worked out.
And
trap doors don't work, or sometimes they sort of work, but in the case of JMS, it worked beautifully.
Okay, can I throw in a quick anecdote here about in this episode? And again, we could talk about all of it, and I won't. But so much information came. I mean, they tied up so many things. And again, I think you're right, Madman, that this is a direct result of the trapdoor thing. It's like all this stuff that was kind of floating out there, and he was like piecemealing it. It's like the realization came due to what happened, and they're like, okay, we got to just deal with this. And they dealt with it beautifully in this episode. All the Minbari stuff, it's like we're not jacking around anymore. We're actually getting to a story. There's a friend of mine who used to love watching Vampire Diaries. God knows why. But she did. And it was, she used to talk about how it's like, oh, they have these things that seem like it's going to be a big storyline. And they're just like, nope, they just dealt with it right away. And it kind of became a running joke, And that's what this episode felt like. It's like, oh, all these things floating out. Suddenly they're just like, nope, we're just telling you what it is. Here we go. We're.
Well, and there was that info dump. There was that moment, and I'm sure we'll get into it, where Lanier is finally like, "Okay, I just got to level with you. This is what I'm supposed to tell you," and blah 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 blah.
Right. and
that's paying off. That's paying off from the season finale where Delenn tells Lanier, "Okay, you're going to have to tell him because he's not here for me to tell him, and I got to do this cocoon thing."
Yeah.
So there's a thread there that had to be picked up. Now, whether it's the same piece of information pre and post trapdoor, that's a question.
Yeah,
I would imagine it's probably the same because Straczynski's got the overall 5-year plan of what was originally supposed to happen.
Yeah, and Madman, you could probably comment on this better, but I think it was compressed.
I can comment on it, but it will give a lot away.
Okay.
Some things are supposed to be, and some things that are not supposed to be from the original script itself.
Yeah, I imagine Sheridan didn't exist really, or at least not in this form.
No, there is no Sheridan.
Right.
The trapdoor is the Sheridan character.
Right.
Yeah.
And they brought him in and introduced him, in my opinion, very well. What do you guys think? Do you think that
I said, I loved that he started off on a ship, and they're obviously the ship is out there fighting pirates or whatever, raiders.
Right.
And okay, well, we'll be back, if you ever have a problem, and so on and so forth. And then Gold Channel right off the bat, and it's this general.
Well, it adds to the world building.
Right.
Because up until this point, Earth Force has been these couple of faces on the screen, and there's
always hostile.
Yeah. And they're off on Earth. we don't get a sense of Starfleet. We don't have any ships other than the Star Furies, the little fighters, the cargo ships, and whatever. And we hear talk about the civilian ships, the transports that come in, people coming and going, or whatever. But we don't get any sense of any military operations outside of, here's a Minbari warship. Okay, where's Earth's warship? And now we finally see one.
Yeah, yeah. And Sheridan has a reputation because he did something
Right.
nobody else could.
Yeah, well,
know?
and you want to talk about
Yeah,
Snob,
yeah.
just once, Snob, you brought this up. Did you have a point you wanted to make with in particular that you were just trying to?
No, I was just trying to hear. I'm curious as to what you guys thought. I thought that, I wanted to. I was curious about how you felt that he elevated things. I'm not saying that I disagree that it's not elevated. I just was curious as to why you were.
Okay.
I will mention that what you guys were talking about. You're talking about there's a lot of plots being wrapped up, but there is a ton of plots that are still not wrapped up, right? Like often in these kind of shows, the new show for the season will wrap everything up. We still don't know what's up with where if Garibaldi's going to live. We haven't seen Delenn. We don't know what she's going to look like, if she's going to be a butterfly or if she's coming out. What the heck's going to happen with that? We still don't know where Jakar is. There's a ton of plots that are not, major plots are not wrapped up.
But we're also introducing, the new commander of the station, the captain of the station. Right. So, it's kind of like those first episodes in season 1 where, okay, this episode is about so-and-so and so-and-so. Okay, we're getting introduced to those characters. And now we're getting introduced to the new leader.
It did bring us to a plateau though, right?
Yeah.
And in relation, I mean, wow, Jeff, why don't you talk about the thing you were going to say about what Sheridan did? What's his claim to fame?
So Sheridan, and you'll see both Madman and myself kind of chose the same little thing, Star Killer, which obviously it's got to be a tribute to the original name for Skywalker was Star Killer, right? I'm sure
somehow
it was
Star Killer returned.
Yeah, yeah. So. But basically, he figured out a way. They explain, and it was explained pretty well that one of the problems that we had when fighting the Minbari was they have some sort of stealth technology that prevented our ships from being able to lock onto theirs, and we weren't, no matter what we seemed to be able to do, we couldn't hit them because of this technology. Oh, sorry, Outpost. But at any rate, he Kobayashi Maru, is that he kind of did his own
what he ended up doing is he ended up mining an asteroid field, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter.
But he came up with an outside of the box thing, and then we can target those. No problem. So, just start a chain reaction.
To start, blowing up the asteroids caught the ships, and then you could detect them because of the impact.
Right.
He did the always excellent area attack.
Yeah. Area of effect spell. Right. but yeah, I mean, and
your metaphors there, Jeff.
Hard to believe that. Well, of course, that's me. But hard to believe nobody else thought of this. We're at war, and it's whatever. I mean,
well,
it's kind of like the Holdo effect, right? Hey, let's just take a ship to hyperspace and fly it through another hyperspace.
No, it's not like
that. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's like nobody's ever thought of this before. I wonder why.
Well, but this is a legitimate, tactic. I mean, that not something that there was always a plausible reason why you shouldn't do that.
Outpost Nerd brings up something I wanted to talk about, but we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cam.
Well, and they do mention. So okay, so Sheridan is the only guy who basically won a battle against the Minbari, and it was a big one. He blew up. They mentioned this. He blew up their flagship.
Right.
And
three other warships.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Heavy cruisers. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. They kind of summarize this very briefly. actually, spoilers, there is a much deeper exploration of that, which is really cool to see. I think it's in one of the movies actually.
In the beginning.
Yeah. Where they show that, and so that's a fun. I mean, it's not a spoiler because we already saw it, but it's just you get more. But so and they mentioned this back. Yvonne Haig, or I should say, Sheridan brings it up himself. He's like, well, "Why are you sending me? This is going to be a problem for them, right?"
He knows. He's
to
pointed
Haig.
out.
Right, and
Right.
then Ivanova, is aware of it as well, and kind of discusses it with him, and Sheridan talks about it himself, and he's like, I'm not going to apologize for for being the only, for our only victory, so it's they're setting up that kind of good tension, I think.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and they also, whereas Sinclair had a prior relationship with Garibaldi, now we're saying, okay, Sheridan has a prior relationship with Ivanova.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why her character kind of, now we're uplifting her character a little bit from being the
I mean,
cold, stale.
it was such a world. I mean, am I wrong? It was a world of difference.
Noticeable. Like I said, I literally was going, I wonder what Cam's going to say about this. Every time I'd see her, it just seems like
and
she was a little
she
happier about
was
something.
She was well utilized also in the script, to bring out this information about Sheridan, right?
Started with them on IO, I think.
Right, but they didn't bring it out. So it was like they were familiar enough with each other to have conversations in a somewhat casual way, without it being like, "Oh, look, we're best friends," and I mean, that's what I thought, at least.
She's kind of like the doctor's companion, right? Where when you have a regeneration for the doctor and the companion hangs on, she's the audience proxy for the transition to get people used to the new lead actor.
Right.
And it's almost kind of the same thing here, where usually you have the banter between Sinclair and Garibaldi. Well, now both of them are unavailable. Sinclair's gone, Garibaldi's in coma. So who's going to get that back and forth? Well, the fact that Sheridan and Ivanova have a relationship, you can give it to them.
Right.
And it's a little bit different because of the dynamic and that sort of thing. But I think it does add some energy to her character, and it opens her up and animates her a little bit more, because this is somebody that I know. Because you remember in season 1, she didn't know Sinclair. She didn't have any prior relationship to anybody, so she's a little standoffish. She keeps to herself. We've talked about that for a couple of times. She's very wretched. Doesn't trust anybody. I'm just gonna do my job and focus on the job. Well, I think the assassination of the president has also had an emotional impact. That's a gut punch for her.
And she does say that. She does go into, because she
Yeah.
goes into a little explanation about that when talking to Sheridan.
Yeah, and I think that
how are you doing? How's the crew doing? How are you doing?
Yeah,
I think and she's very concerned about Garibaldi, so I think she's trying to also reinforce that relationship. She's there like clockwork, 2:45 every day or something like that, I think it was.
And she may feel a little bit of a guilt obligation there, because they didn't get along until toward the end of the first season, and even then it's kind of touch and go some. So maybe she feels like she's got an obligation to him.